The autumn air in Nashville, Tennessee, hung crisp and heavy as the neon lights of the Tennessee After Dark studio flickered to life. Inside, the crowd buzzed with anticipation. Locals mostly, folks who'd driven in from Franklin or Clarksville, their boots tapping the floor, ready for a night of sharp-witted laughs. Jake Hensley, the host with a grin as wide as the Cumberland River, strode onto the stage, his voice booming through the mic. "Welcome, y'all. Let's kick this off with some truth wrapped in a little Southern spice." The audience roared, hands clapping like thunder rolling over the hills. Jake's show was a Nashville staple, a late-night mix of biting humor and political jabs, served up with a drawl that made even the sting feel familiar. Tonight, though, something felt different. He leaned into the mic, eyes glinting under the studio lights. "So, I hear Barron Trump's been keeping quiet lately. Guess when your mom's Melania and your dad's, well, you know who, you don't need to talk much. Maybe he's just waiting for the hair gel to kick in." A ripple of laughter swept through the room, but it wasn't clean. Some chuckled nervously, shifting in their seats. Others frowned, hands stilling mid-clap. The jab wasn't just quick, it was personal, aimed at a kid who'd never asked for the spotlight. The camera zoomed in, catching every smirk, every uneasy glance. Backstage, a producer muttered under his breath, "That's going to stir the pot." And stir it did. Within hours, the clip hit the internet like wildfire racing through dry grass. Twitter erupted. Hashtag Leave Barron Alone clashing with hashtag Jake Hensley in a digital shouting match. On Instagram, a mom from East Nashville posted the clip with a caption, "This ain't funny. That's somebody's child." The likes poured in, hundreds turning to thousands. Down at Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, regulars huddled over beers, voices low but heated. Jake's crossed the line, one grumbled, tipping his glass. "Ain't right picking on a boy like that." Across town, Lydia Marshall sat hunched over her laptop in a cramped apartment off 12th Avenue. A freelance journalist with a nose for truth and a knack for stirring trouble, she replayed the clip, her brow furrowing deeper with each word. "This isn't just Jake being Jake," she whispered to herself, fingers hovering over the keys. "There's something behind this." She'd covered Jake's rise, his charm, his edge, but this felt off, calculated. She grabbed her phone and texted a source from the network. "What's the deal with tonight's script?" "Call me." The reply buzzed back fast. "Can't talk now. Too hot." Meanwhile, the studio lights dimmed as Jake wrapped the show, oblivious to the storm brewing outside. He tossed a wink to the crowd, voice smooth as Tennessee whiskey. "Y'all come back now here? We got plenty more where that came from." The applause was loud, but uneven, a few boos sneaking through the cracks. As he stepped off stage, a stagehand clapped his shoulder. "Good one tonight, boss. Folks will be talking about that Trump bit for days." Jake laughed, brushing it off. "That's the game, man. Keeping talking ponto." But out in the quiet streets of Nashville, the talk was turning dark. At a diner on Gallatin Pike, a gray-haired woman named Sue Ellen set her coffee down hard, her voice trembling as she spoke to her friend. "I've got a grandson Barron's age. If some hotshot made him the butt of a joke on TV, I'd be fit to be tied." Her friend nodded, eyes narrowing. "Melania's got to do something. No mama's going to let that slide." The words hung heavy, a spark waiting to ignite. By midnight, the clip had racked up 1 million views. Lydia's phone lit up with a tip. "Check the network's old memos. You'll see." Her pulse quickened. She knew a story was breaking, bigger than Jake, bigger than a single bad joke. And somewhere in Palm Beach, a mother's resolve was hardening, setting the stage for a reckoning no one saw coming. Nashville's neon glow faded into the night, but the fire was just beginning to burn. What would happen next? Only time, and a fierce mama bear, would tell. The Palm Beach night was still, the kind of quiet that presses against your skin. Inside the Trump estate, Melania sat alone in the dim living room, TV glow casting shadows on her face. Jake Hensley's smirk replayed on a loop, his voice cutting through. Maybe he's just waiting for the hair gel to kick in. Each word hit hard, and her grip tightened on the remote until her knuckles whitened. She'd faced jabs before, years of headlines, But this was her son, her Barron, the boy she'd shielded from chaos since day one. She stood, pacing the marble floor, heels clicking in fury. Memories flooded in. Barron at 10, asking over breakfast, "Mom, why do they hate us?" She'd brush his hair back, voice firm. "They don't hate you, Moj Draghi. They don't know you." Now, at 18, he was her quiet shadow, sketching in his room while the world spun its noise. And Jake had dragged him into it. Her jaw clenched. "Not this time," she whispered. "Not my boy." The phone was in her hand fast. She scrolled to Rebecca Sullivan, a Nashville lawyer with a razor-sharp reputation. Rebecca had met Melania at a gala, two outsiders bonding over grit. The line rang twice. "Melania?" Rebecca's twang crackled through. "What's going on, hon?" "It's late." Melania didn't pause. "Did you see it? That comedian. He went after Barron." A beat. Then Rebecca's tone hardened. "Saw it. Made my blood boil. What are we doing?" "I want to fight," Melania said, accent sharp. "A lawsuit. Defamation. Whatever it takes." Rebecca didn't flinch. "Good. I've tangled with networks before. Slimy bunch. We'll hit him hard. You're a wall they can't climb." Melania exhaled, relief breaking her rage. "I need you, Rebecca. He's my son." The reply was steel. "I've got your back. Meet me in Nashville tomorrow. We're filling fast." In Tennessee, news seeped into the city's cracks. At a church off Nolensville Pike, Pastor Daniel Hayes scrolled his phone, the clip on his feed. His brow furrowed. "Lord have mercy. That ain't right," he muttered. He'd preached to Nashville's faithful for years. New words wait. "Folks need to hear this," he decided, texting his deacon. "Sunday sermon's changin'. We're talking compassion." By morning, Melania was on a jet, staring at clouds, mind racing. She pictured Barron upstairs, headphones on, unaware of the storm she'd unleash. "I promised I'd protect you," she murmured, reflection in the window. In Nashville, Rebecca was at her desk, legal pads piled high. She barked in her phone. "Give me everything on Hensley and that network." "Dirt now." Her assistant stammered, "Yes, ma'am," as she hung up, muttering, "They picked the wrong mama." Word of the lawsuit hit Nashville like thunder. At Broadway Brew, moms huddled around a table. "She's suing him?" One asked, eyes wide. "Darn right," another snapped, slamming her mug. "I'd do the same if it was my Tyler." Chatter grew fierce, a chorus of agreement. A pickup rolled by, radio blaring a DJ. "Melania's coming for Jake, y'all. This town's about to light up." Melania's plane landed, and her phone buzzed. Lydia Marshall's blog. "Jake's joke? A ratings ploy?" The words burned with suspicion. Melania's lips pressed tight. Good, she thought. Let them dig. She wasn't just angry. She was resolute. The fight was on, and Nashville would feel it. What would Jake do when the tables turned? She didn't care. This was war, and she'd win it for her son. The Davidson County Courthouse loomed over downtown Nashville, its stone facade cold against the late October sky. Inside, the air buzzed with tension as Melania Trump stepped through the doors, her tailored coat a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Paparazzi swarmed the steps, cameras flashing like lightning, while a crowd gathered, some clutching signs that read, "Protect our kids," others waving banners proclaiming free speech ain't dead. The city was splitting down the middle, and the trial hadn't even started. Rebecca Sullivan strode beside Melania, her boots clicking with purpose. "They're scared," she muttered, nodding at the throng. "Good. Let him squirm." Melania's eyes stayed fixed ahead, voice low. "I don't care about them. I care about Barron." Rebecca gripped her arm, fierce. "We're getting justice, Han, for him." They entered the courtroom, a packed gallery whispering as the gavel fell. Jake Hensley sat across the room, his usual smirk gone, replaced by a tight-lipped glare. His lawyers whispered furiously, but he just stared ahead, hands clenched. The prosecution opened like a storm breaking. Rebecca stood tall, her voice ringing out. "This isn't about a joke, ladies and gentlemen. This is about a grown man, Jake Hensley, targeting a boy who never signed up for this circus." She pointed at Jake, unflinching. He didn't just cross a line. He stomped on it, Logan all the way. The clip played on a screen. Jake's drawl, the uneasy chuckles, and gasps rippled through the room. Melania sat still, but her eyes burned, every word a dagger she'd felt first. A juror, a gray-haired woman, dabbed her eyes with a tissue. Jake's lawyer shot up, slick as oil. "Your Honor, this is comedy. Protected speech. Barron Trump's a public figure by proxy. Fair game." He turned to the jury, arms wide. "If we can't laugh at the powerful, what's left of freedom?" Murmurs spread, some nodding, others scowling. Rebecca fired back, sharp. "Freedom? Tell that to a kid who can't walk outside without this hanging over him. This ain't humor, it's cruelty." The room crackled, divided, as the judge banged for order. Outside, Nashville boiled over. A group of local comedians rallied near the Ryman Auditorium, megaphones blaring. "If Jake goes down, we all do," one shouted, voice hoarse. "Comedy's dead if this sticks." Across the street, moms from Belle Meade stood firm, signs high. "Bullies don't get a pass," a woman named Karen yelled, her teenage son beside her, fists balled. "My boy's been mocked enough. I'm with Melania." Horns honked as cars slowed, drivers craning to see the showdown. Inside a bar on 2nd Avenue, Pastor Daniel Hayes watched the news with his congregation, shaking his head. "This ain't just about a trial," he said, voice grave. "It's about what we let slide. That boy's hut in, and we're arguing rights." A woman beside him, Clara, spoke up, trembling. "I'd tear the world apart if someone did that to my grandbaby." Daniel nodded. "Sunday we pray, but today we speak." He grabbed his coat, heading for the courthouse steps. Jake took his chance that night, back on air despite the heat. The studio lights glared as he leaned into the mic, defiant. "They want to shut me up? Fine, but I'll keep talking till they drag me off this stage." The crowd cheered, but it was thinner, strained. Backstage, a producer hissed, "You're digging your own grave, Jake." He shrugged, reckless. "Leching burimi. I ain't apologizing." Lydia Marshall slipped through the courthouse crowd, notebook in hand. She'd been digging, late nights, calls to old contacts, and found whispers of network pressure on Jake. "This wasn't random," she muttered, scribbling fast. "They wanted a firestorm." She caught Rebecca's eye outside, voice urgent. "Check the memos, Sullivan. There's more here." Rebecca's gaze sharpened. "Keep digging, Marshall. We'll use it." By dusk, the city pulsed with unrest. A pickup blared country music near the trial, drowned out by chant from both sides. Melania stood at a hotel window, watching the lights flicker below. "They don't get it," she whispered, voice breaking. "He's my son, not their punchline." The fight was tearing Nashville apart, but she wouldn't bend. Something bigger was coming. She could feel it. And when it hit, no one would be ready. Rain streaked the windows of the Davidson County Courthouse, a gray shroud over Nashville as the trial hit its peak. Inside, the air was thick, humid with anticipation, every seat taken, every breath held. Melania sat rigid, hands clasped, eyes on Rebecca Sullivan as the lawyer rose with fire. "Your Honor," Rebecca drawled, voice steady, "we've got a witness who'll flip this case." Jake Hensley's head snapped up, his lawyers trading panicked looks. The gallery buzzed, a hum of shock. "Bring him in," the judge ordered, gavel poised. The doors creaked, and Travis Boone stepped forward, a lanky man in faded flannel, face set with resolve. He'd worked the shadows of Tennessee after dark for years, a quiet gear until they'd cut him loose. Now, he carried a briefcase heavy with truth. "State your name," Rebecca said, firm. "Travis Boone," he replied, rough but clear. "Former assistant producer for Jake's show." Gasps rippled through. Melania leaned forward, barely breathing. Rebecca pressed on. "Tell us, Travis, what happened that night?" He swallowed, then opened the case, pulling out papers, emails, memos stained with guilt. "It wasn't just Jake," he said, eyes on the defense. "The network pushed it. I was there when they planned it." He held up an email, projected for all. The words burned. "Hit the Trump kid, controversy's gold. Ratings are tanking," signed by exec Greg Palmer. The courtroom erupted, shouts, cries, until the gavel slammed. Jake's face paled, smirk gone. "You're lying," he barked, jumping up, but his lawyer yanked him back, hissing, "Sit down." Travis stood firm. "I've got more," he said, voice rising. They knew it had hurt the kid. Palmer said, "If Melania bites, even better." He faced the jury, pleading. "I told him it was wrong. They fire me for it." A juror, a father, clenched his jaw, nodding slow. Outside, Lydia Marshall stood under an umbrella, phone to her ear. "I knew it," she shouted, rain soaking her boots. "You got those memos, right? Send him now." Her blog hit fast, network scandal unveiled, and Nashville lit up with shares. At Broadway Brew, moms refreshed feeds, one gasping, "They plan this? For money." Another slammed her fist. "Disgusting. Melania's gotta win." Rebecca's voice boomed. "This wasn't comedy, Your Honor. It was a hit job, paid for and pushed on a boy who couldn't fight back." She pointed at Jake, then the network suits. "They gambled on a child's pain and lost." The gallery cheered, raw and loud, drowning the defense's weak cry. Melania's eyes welled up, but she blinked it back, whispering, "For you, Barron." Pastor Daniel Hayes watched from the crowd, gripping his Bible. "Truth's out," he murmured to Clara. "Let justice roll." She nodded, fierce. "Amen." They messed with the wrong family. Outside, protesters surged, some chanting, "Shut it down," at the network office, others waving signs. "Kids ain't targets." A news van screeched up, reporters tumbling out. Jake's team scrambled, his lawyer stammering. Travis is bitter, fired for cause. But the damage was done. The jury stared at the emails, faces hard. Jake slumped, muttering, "I didn't know they'd go that far." His producer slipped out, phone buzzing with execs in crisis. Lydia caught him, camera flashing. "Running scared?" she yelled. He vanished into the storm. Melania stood as the session broke, Rebecca at her side. "We've got 'em," Rebecca said, low but triumphant. Melania nodded, resolute. "They'll pay." The rain pounded, but the tide had turned. Nashville felt it. The reckoning was here, and the final blow loomed. What would the jury decide? The city held its breath. The sun broke through Nashville's clouds on the final day, casting gold over the Davidson County Courthouse. Inside, the gallery overflowed, locals packed tight, eyes on the jury box. Melania sat still, her face calm, but her hands trembled in her lap. Rebecca Sullivan leaned close, voice low. "This is it, hon. We've laid it all out." Melania nodded, whispering, "For Barron." Across the room, Jake Hensley slumped, bravado gone, staring down as whispers swirled. The judge's gavel fell, sharp. "Order. Jury, your verdict." The foreman, a wiry man with a farmer's tan, stood slow, paper in hand. "We find Jake Hensley and the network liable for defamation and distress." A roar erupted, cheers clashing with groans as the judge banged again. Damages set at $10 million. Melania's breath caught, eyes shining. Rebecca gripped her hand, fierce. "We did it. They're done." Jake's head dropped, his lawyer muttering, "Appeal. We'll appeal." But the noise drowned him. Outside, protesters erupted. Moms hugging, signs waving, "Justice for Barron." A comedian shouted, "This ain't over," but his voice faded fast. Lydia Marshall scribbled, her blog live, "Verdict in. Network pays." She caught Melania's eye as she exited, calling, "You won more than a case." Melania paused, soft. "I won peace for my son." Pastor Daniel Hayes stood on the steps, Bible raised. "Let this be a lesson," he boomed. "Words ain't free, they cost." Clara cheered loud. "Amen. For every mama out there." At Broadway Brew, moms toasted, one saying, "Melania's a fighter. I buy her coffee." Laughter mixed with tears, relief washing over. Jake stumbled out, cameras flashing. "I'm sorry, okay?" he stammered, but the crowd jeered. His show's logo flickered off the marquee that night. Canceled, gone. Rebecca watched, smirking. "Told you they picked the wrong mama." Melania stepped beside her, gazing out. "Thank you," she said, voice breaking. "He's safe now." Rebecca hugged her tight. "You're the strength, hon." The fallout hit fast. Sponsors fled, stocks tanked. Exec Greg Palmer quit under fire. Nashville buzzed, at diners, churches, bars. A dad at Tootsie's said, maybe they'll think twice now. His wife nodded. Melania showed family first. Comedians vowed cleaner laughs. Networks rewrote rules. Melania spoke to the press, poised in fading sun. This wasn't about me, she said, accent thick. It was about a child, my child, and every child who deserves respect. Her words sank deep into Nashville's soul. She turned away, stepping into a car, fight over. Barron waited at home. That was enough. The courthouse emptied, but the lesson stayed. Pastor Daniel led a prayer Sunday, voice ringing. Teach us compassion, Lord. Let's lift, not tear down. The city stood united. Nashville had changed, a reckoning from one mother's love. What next? A kinder world, if they chose it. The sun set, and the city breathed, ready to heal.